You can raise the taxes all you want, but if you don't fix the loopholes, if you don't fix the tax avoidance, and you don't fix the fact that there's always backdoor deals done with the people who make these laws, it's not going to matter. Full disclosure, PSA, I am not against raising taxes on people. That's not what I am, okay? What I'm getting at is that taxes don't actually pay for shit, okay? If that was the case, then our budget would have to be much different, okay? Your tax revenue of $1.3 trillion a year doesn't cover shit, because between actual spending and liabilities on the books, we're at like 10 to 12 trillion a year. If you tax the entire 1% of people 100% of their wealth, you would do nothing. It doesn't change anything. The idea of taxes is to give value to money. That being said, the idea of taxing rich people more money is fine. It's a feel-good thing because it makes people feel like it's more fair, and that's what it's all about. Unfortunately, and this isn't a political take, this is just how modern money theory and how the Keynesian economics that we have work, and it is what it is. I know, well, then let's fix the system. Okay, I get it. That's the reason that I say taxing wealthy people more is great, but it's so far down on the list of things that will actually change anything that it doesn't matter nearly as much as people make it seem. Because it's not about getting the money, it's about spending the money. We already take on ungodly amounts of debt all the time through ones and zeros and interest rates and borrowing and asset purchases and debt. The problem is, how is that money spent? Right? If you tax, let's say you tax the 1%, 50% of everything, not just their income, but everything they own, and you pull in $2.5 trillion, right? Let's just say. That's great. But what's the guarantee that that money actually goes to social programs? It doesn't. It doesn't, right? And the reason is that we have money in politics. Did you know that of the 535 members of Congress, 70% of them are millionaires? And of the 30%, or sorry, of the ones that go into Congress not as millionaires, even after one term, they all leave as millionaires? You ever thought about that? How is it that people who make $120,000 a year become millionaires 4 years later? Money in politics is the problem, because everything is a backdoor deal. You have to get elected, and in order to get elected, you have to get money. You get money from people and corporations that are wealthy. And then there's kickbacks and whatnot, right? So you're telling me that we can't afford to feed people in America. Well, let's raise the taxes on the rich. That'll get it. No, it won't. It doesn't matter how much money you get if you don't spend it right. Give you an example. For those of you guys that were in the morning call, the open morning call this morning. Our Congress cannot get together to agree to spend a penny on a goddamn thing. But they voted 420 to 9 to give $1 billion to Israel for their Iron Dome. That is one of the most come together bipartisan votes I've ever seen in one of the most divided Congresses in the history of our country. Money in politics will always keep shit from changing. If you want the fix, if you put people into Congress and they don't have an incentive to better themselves, or they have the inability to make these backdoor deals and do all this, then the money that they get, whether it's through taxes or through borrowing, they'll actually have to spend because they'll be held accountable, right? That's where the problem lies. And that's why I always get into this whole thing about taxes. Like I said, I'm not against raising taxes on people or whatever. Just stop using these false straw man arguments, because, like I said, somebody fed you some echo chamber straw man argument bullshit about how we have to tax this person more than that person because it's no. Either you don't understand how taxation and how that money is actually used, or you want to feel better because that person has to give up more because it feels more fair, right? That's all I'm saying. Should people be allowed to hoard all that wealth while there are people that are starving out there? That's a whole nother conversation. I'm just talking about the taxation process. Everyone likes to say tax the rich is the solution, and it's not even the top 5. Why don't you actually debate or talk to somebody that has a different opinion? I'd love to, as long as it stays online. First of all, there's just nobody that has offered to do it, and the people who I have always then divulge the conversation into some other argument about some other thing, and it never stays on topic because people want to have a pure political conversation and not a monetary conversation about it. But I would more than happy to have it. It's not about debating. I'm not going to debate anybody. I like to hear other people's opinions. I'm one of the few people that I know whose opinions have changed on many things over the years. Many things over the years. Not just on social issues, but on fiscal issues. I always change because I'm always wanting to learn more, because I never want to be a person who gets stuck in an idea or an opinion and is entrenched in it so much that like I'm blinded. You know what I mean? I don't like that. This dude is getting paid to say tax the rich isn't the answer. I said taxing the rich is not the number one way of getting those programs done. There's many other ways. The reason I'm not talking about taxing the rich as a problem solution. I'm talking about understanding how taxing works and how doing that is not the solution. Sure, it could help, because what happens with taxes? Taxes are what gives value to money, right? It gives value to money. So obviously taxing would help. But I often hear these arguments that come out that say, well, if we tax the rich more, we'll make $1 trillion, and that $1 trillion will pay for all these programs. Well, what about the $1 trillion we spend on defenses of other countries every year, right? Like we can get the money. Money is an abstract thing, it can be printed out of thin air. So that's what I'm saying is that it could help if the money is allocated to the right place. But until money is out of politics, it's never going to be allocated the right way. You could tax everyone 100% and have all the money in the world, but if you don't allocate the money correctly, it won't matter. And as long as you have people that are going to be, have goals and drives that are not for their actual constituents, it won't matter. And so I always say, if you want to make change, you have to get everybody on the same page. But the problem is you can't get everybody on the same page, because the idea is to have everyone fight each other or misdirect everybody's anger, right? Divide people. Make people divided on race. Make them divided on social economic class. Make them divided on taxation. Make them divided on socioeconomic issues, education. Get them to do that, and it's very simple to never make a change. Very, very easy to do that. It's very, very easy to do that. Like I said, I have no problem in raising the taxes on corporations and whatnot. The problem, though, is that the people who say that don't understand, because you can raise the taxes all you want, but if you don't fix the loopholes, if you don't fix the tax avoidance, and you don't fix the fact that there's always backdoor deals done with the people who make these laws, it's not going to matter. You see what I'm saying? It's like, okay, you want to root out the problem, you got to understand where the problem is. That's all I'm saying. Okay? How do you debate the monetary aspects without going into politics behind it? Oh, no. There is always, politics and money always work together. But I'm talking about my personal politics. Like, my personal politics are about find what has worked in the past, what hasn't worked, use it to evolve into the future. For example, I don't like generalized arguments, right? Like, for example, when I want to fix something, I don't just, if the light bulb is out and it's not working and I put in a new light bulb and the light bulb's not working, I don't just try to keep trying new light bulbs, right? Like, I try to go to the source. I'll give you an example, and this is politics, right? You can look at something and you have to delve into it, because what happens is when a person, when a group, or an idealism believes something as a matter of fact, they will pick and choose how they want to come to that conclusion. I could take the same statistics on something and come to two totally different conclusions cherry pick it, and in that case, come up with an idealism that I push onto other people. So that is that right there. How? Okay, I'll give you an example. I can make an argument that would support not taxing rich people, allowing corporations to have 0% tax, and the idea of trickle-down economics, even though I don't believe in that. But at the same time, I can make a very, very good argument as to why we need to raise the taxes on rich people. We need to raise corporate taxes. Why we need to invest in our social programs, invest in our schools and education, and how actually that will grow the economy more. You know what I like to do with debates is I like to take the side of something that I don't agree with and try to defend it. And when I do that, I actually end up learning more. Doesn't mean I always switch my position personally, but I actually learn so much more. I learn so much more because what I do is I open up my personal, my personal biases, and I end up seeing what other people see. And I learn shit, and I also get my opinion. That's how I change with drugs. I was very, very anti-drug growing up. I thought drugs should be hardcore illegal, and people should go to prison for drugs. But why? Think about it. Everybody comes to an idea because of their environment. My parents were both drug addicts. My grandfather was a cop for 30 years. So I grew up in an environment where the idea of drugs was bad. And I don't mean drugs are good for you. I mean, as in like people should go to prison for drugs. But then I started looking at it onto the other side, and I thought to myself, people who use drugs or are addicted to drugs, they're not criminals. It's a disability. It's an addiction, right? You don't lock up people who, put people in prison who have a mental illness. An addiction to drugs is a neurological or is a chemical balance in your body that your body it's almost a mental illness, and so people need to be treated, not punished. And so that right there is an example of opening up yourself to other ideas, accepting them, learning from them, and thinking to yourself, hey, I still don't think we should just, legalize all drugs, but we should, this war on drugs is a fail. It only costs money. It only puts people in prison. It only ruins lives. It only costs the taxpayers more money, and it doesn't solve the issue. The idea of taxing the rich 100% is the same as locking up all the, things in not it's not a one-to-one comparison. I'm talking about like with the hyper focus of someone's idealism, right? Like that's the solution. No, that could be part of it, but that's not, you got to get to the root of it. You know what I mean? Saki seems like a trickle down kind of guy. I'm actually not a trickle down type of guy. I'm actually I think that there is an argument for trickle down, but the problem is trickle down only works. Remember, here's the thing. Whether you're a Republican or a Reagan Republican who's like, oh, well, if you lower the taxes on the rich and the corporations, they'll then in turn reinvest that money and it makes more jobs and more money for everybody, that's trickle down. Or you're the opposite of fuck them, let's tax them all and give and Robin Hood and give the money to the poor, right? Either way, it's not gonna work because of the loopholes, right? If there was a way to make corporate tax zero, but force that money that's saved to be reinvested into the company on the US side, into jobs, infrastructure, and whatnot, then it would work. But there's not. You lower it to 0%, that money just goes offshore. Now, you say, well, tax them 100% and give the money out. That's great, but then there's no incentive for them to continue growing, which means they end up having no extra money, no shareholders, which means they cut jobs. Now you have more people unemployed, which means the money goes there. Then you have the companies continue to get smaller and smaller. Then you don't have incentivization for companies to get to a certain level. They'll always stay right below the level of taxation. And then it just continues to crumble down. And now you don't have anybody to tax, but you're still giving out the money and you collapse the economy, right? So there's always this idea that my idea will work when it comes to economics. So like it'll work if you do it. The loopholes will always be the problems. That's always the problem. So no, I'm not a trickle down type of guy. I'm a trickle down if you can somehow control that money being reinvested, but you can't, right? Until you can, it's not going to work. Trickle down works in a perfect environment, just like socialism works in a perfect environment, or communism works in a perfect environment, or capitalism works in a perfect environment, or anarchy works in a perfect environment. The problem is that these environments are run by people, and people are corruptible, and that's always how it's going to be. That doesn't mean that I'm saying, oh, we should just give up and not make changes because, you know, if you can't fix it, it's not worth trying. No, I'm not saying that. I'm just trying to ground people and let them understand before they get caught up in an idea. All right. We need machine overlords. I agree. Communism works because it can actually happen. I know it does. I've seen it. Stalin, Russia, Mao Zedong, China, now Venezuela. I've seen it. Yeah, it works. Cuba, you're absolutely right. It can work. I mean, it can work for the people in power. Capitalism is trash too. Crony capitalism. Remember, once again, guys, remember, like I said, everybody's form of economics or government will always be perfect the way they construct it in their head. It's just how it is. I am never going to defend capitalism, especially the capitalism that we have, right? It's crony capitalism. I can't defend it. I'd be stupid to defend it, right? But I'm also realistic and understanding that replacing it with something else, it's not going to be perfect, okay? I was considering a life of wealth and comfort, but now I see that I would have to pay taxes, so I no longer wish to be rich. Guess I'll just go into all in on GME instead. I would recommend something that will make you lose money even quicker. I could recommend a lot of stocks like that if you would like that. At least with GameStop, you know, there's a chance that it's going to 5,000. You could just buy Nike calls.